going on, everybody? Thought I'd shoot a little short video today. I got up here and got to remembering a story grandmother told me. It's not going to be a long video. Again, I come unprepared and phone uncharged. It's going to some little bit longer stories to tell you, but I'll be lucky if the battery stays charged to get through this. But I hope everybody's doing all right out there. When I was younger, the sun may be in your eyes. When I was younger, I used to sit around and listen to my grandmother, who was 82 when she died, tell stories, all kinds of stories of things that happened to her when she was younger in her childhood. And like I said, my family was on that side very open to all kinds of beliefs and experiences and stuff like that. But there was a story she told a few times that I listened to, snuck around and listened to. Finally asked her about it one day, and she told me, yeah. But when she was a little girl, they were in the process of moving the cemetery. And she couldn't remember why. I think she said she's probably around 11, 12 years old. But she didn't remember why. But used to, back in those days, it wasn't uncommon for them to move a few graves for different reasons. I don't know if it'd be roads or lakes or property dispute. Different reasons that they would move these graves. And I'm thinking this had to be probably in the 30s maybe when this happened. But they were in the process of going to move this particular section of the graveyard. And by the way, off the subject, if you'll notice that big open space right there where nobody's buried, and then over here at the old side, you can plainly see old graves. The rumor has it that the witch and her family were buried on this side, and nobody from that point on wanted their family anywhere near where she was buried. So there's a big old gap right there. And then on the other side over there, it's the same thing, another gap. Back to our story. So they were moving this cemetery, and she went to work with her dad that day, or either her or her mom tagged along for some reason. I'm not sure if the women maybe brought food to the men, because there was no heavy machinery to dig these holes. So they would bring them stuff to eat, stuff to drink, and these men would get paid a little bit to dig these graves up and relocate them. And we're going to walk through the bad part. So she said that when this was going on one day, she remembered some men hollering. They'd dug a grave up. And she remembered some men hollering. And the way they did it, they parked their wagons so you didn't actually see what was, the macabreness of it. And then the people, the women and stuff, would stay on the other side of the wagons. But he started hollering and motioning for other men and other people to come over there and take a look at something. And this sparked my grandmother's curiosity as well. So everybody's oohing and awing and looking at something. So she sneaks off and goes around above the hill and behind them where she can kind of see what they're looking at. And it looks like the lid of a coffin has been taken off of the coffin, and the top of the lid was clawed. Now I know that sounds horrible. It is horrible. And she went on to tell that back in the day, back then, they didn't have this soft cushioning and stuff like in coffins that they have today, but they would put something like a blanket with some kind of design, just some sort of decoration to make it look nicer, whatever they had. And they'd put it in the coffin, and they'd put it on the lid and different things like that to make it look better. And all this was clawed up. Right there's a wide open spot on this side. And all this had been clawed up. And as a matter of fact, fingernails were found in the lid of the coffin. The body was kicked around, wasn't put in there, folded, arms folded across his chest. and it just looked like somebody had just been buried alive. And that's exactly what had happened. Someone was buried alive, and she went on to tell me that I think they moved something like 30 graves, and out of 30 they found 2 that were like that, where evidently the people wasn't completely dead, probably had a faint heartbeat, undetectable faint pulse, and was buried that way. I'm sure that probably happened quite a bit in those days. But she said that stuck with her for a long time as a kid, seeing what little bit of it she seen. But then once she heard it explained to her too, you know, what she was seeing, went on to terrify her quite a bit. You know, the men, the townsmen went on and told exactly from that point on what had happened. And they told that yes, they found fingernails, it was clawed up, the bottom of the casket looked like it had been kicked, you know, almost to the point that it was busted. The look that was on this person's face or skull or whatever was remaining of it, just horrible thing. And she said she had never ever forgotten that. And that graveyard, it's not that far away from here right now. In fact, she's actually buried in that graveyard. But I don't know if they had to move it because of a road or a land dispute or what. But I had my own experience in that graveyard. When I was young, we went to put some flowers on someone's grave. I can't remember whose it was. This was about in '79. So I would have been right around 10 years old, 10, 11 years old. And I remember we was there putting flowers on somebody's grave. I can't remember whose. Quite a large family. And I'd wandered off, as I always did. I never stayed around. Especially if the women took me. I didn't want to stay around them, hang around. So I'd wandered off and got down to the part of the graveyard at the bottom of the hill there. Some old graves, just kind of like those back there. Just real old looking structures. And I swear I could hear what sounded like organ music being played. And I kind of stopped. You know, I thought, well, yeah, who's playing this? You know, we're just coming from somebody's car radio. But where I was at, there was no road nowhere near it. And then, like I say, this graveyard, it's kind of secluded. There was nobody else there. And I could plain as day hear this organ music coming from down there. And it sounded like it was coming from the ground, to be more precise. Kind of scary. But after listening to it for just a few minutes, it got to a little bit unnerving. It kind of bothered me because you couldn't really pinpoint where this was coming from. It wasn't coming from the weeds or the woods, because I got closer to them, it got fainter. Right there in the old part of that graveyard, just hearing that music, I wish I'd have put my ear to the ground, but just hearing that music was just so unnerving. So I remember going back up there to get my mother and some people, aunts, and told them what I had heard down there. And a couple of them wanted to go down there and see for themselves, but I think it was my aunt, she didn't want no part of it. Don't go back down there, don't go nowhere near that. I've heard it before myself, coming from down there, and other people had heard it in the community coming from down there. So she discouraged the rest of them from going down there, except for one. I had a cousin that was I guess she at the time was probably in her 20s. So her and another lady goes down there, and they come back, and of course they didn't hear anything. Did not hear one peep of anything coming from down there at that graveyard. Man, I was furious. So they treated me, of course, like I was lying to them or trying to play a joke on them. But what helped me was my one aunt said that she had heard that coming from down there before too, and that other people in the community had heard it. So I had went back since then, since I've grown up, able to drive and go back. I actually went back several times. I've never heard it again. Went back a few years ago, we was going to have a meteor shower, and that was a good place to go because you can't see them here for all the city lights now and stuff. So it was way out in the country and dark, and I remember going there and thinking, man, what if I hear this tonight? It was me and my son, and of course we didn't hear anything. But things like that just to pop back into your head, you know, I've got so many stories to tell you, and I come up here with my phone not charged, or I come up here unprepared at the time, and then these other stories pop in my head. Well, I'll just, you know, I'll tell them this story, or I'll tell them this story. So I got plenty more to come, some pretty good stuff, some pretty scary stuff. But I'll drop y'all another line here, maybe in a few days before Halloween gets here, and touch bases with y'all then. Guys, I appreciate all the nice comments. You guys really make me feel like somebody feel good. Y'all are very friendly and very nice, and I don't pay any attention to the haters. So thank y'all for that. I feel like a family out there. Till next time, guys, we'll talk to y'all later.